welcome to the one and only Tszyu.
G'day guys, how we going? Welcome to Talking Boxing. It is Monday, June the 16th, 2025, and great to have everyone along as always. Plenty to talk about. Of course, the big fight yesterday, George Kambosos going down in 8 rounds to Richardson Hitchens. Want to know everyone's thoughts on that. I'm sure, judging by the comments there's a fair bit to say. Also, what do you think of Jackson Murray, if you've seen that fight? And also Terramona, who actually asked me about that on the YouTube video I put up today. What was it? Walking Boxing. But, that show I do as well. Why didn't I talk about Terramona? Well, my response was, well, what is there to talk about? Just shocking matchmaking. I don't know why he would bother to even go over there. I'm a big fan of Terramona, by the way, but what else can I say about that? It was just a totally overmatched opponent and should not have been in the ring. And until he fights someone worth talking about that can actually throw some hands back, not really much to comment on there. But again, I'm a big fan of Terramona. I think he's got a massive future, but until they line him up with someone that, as I said, can at least hold their hands up, then I'm not going to get too excited about Terramona. All right, so if you're new to the show, how the way it works is, as it says there, Talking Boxing, put your comments, opinions, remarks, whatever it might be, in the chat, and let's get on with it in this episode. All right, now I'm going to go to my screen here. Apologies for looking away, but I've got the comments in the right order. Over here, they all scramble for starters. All right, so we'll start with Asbot. What do we got there, Asbot? George is the most successful B-level fighter in history. Love him, but it's time to go. He just can't hang at the top, unfortunately. Well, it's hard to argue with that, Asbot. I don't know. I was thinking about it this morning when I did Walking Boxing. I thought, how do I put a positive spin on it? How do I, try and have 20 minutes or so, whatever it is, of talking about or constructively talk about the fight? And I had nothing. Literally, he was outclassed from the first bell until he was stopped or knocked down in the 8th round. So, look, as everyone that watches this show would know, I'm a fan of George Kambosos, firstly because of the way they treated me when I went overseas a couple of years ago, but also I respect people where respect is due. And regardless of whether you like George as a person, whether you think he can fight or not, end of the day, he pulled off one of the biggest wins in Australian boxing history. Yes, Australian boxing history. And okay, since then, it hasn't really gone his way. I get it. Outclassed by Haney, outclassed by Lomachenko, outclassed by Hitchens yesterday. Lucky to get the Hughes win. I get all that. But nothing, for me anyway, will ever take away from the fact that he beat Tszyu Lopez for all the belts. I don't want to hear this franchise thing and all the rest of it. He won all 4 belts and the Ring magazine. He's got my utmost respect. And okay, as I said, he hasn't been able to back it up since then, but it is what it is. As far as a B-level fighter, look, Asbot, without that win over Lopez, you're right. He may be classed as a B-level fighter, but that might be fine. You might be 100% right there. He's probably the most successful B-level fighter in history. So you probably hit it right on the head there. What else to say? They love him, but it's time to go. We just can't hang at the top, unfortunately. Yeah, look, it's up to him whether he wants to go on at 32 years of age. I think he's finished at the top level, if I'm being completely honest. I think yesterday showed, and look, to be honest with you, the Lomachenko fight probably showed that. Although, having said that, I mean, the Lomachenko and Haney losses to 2 great fighters. I know the argument that's still there about what Haney's going to do, but look, up until Ryan Garcia was considered probably top 10 pound for pound, a very, very good fighter. On the road to greatness, maybe. Lomachenko was obviously already there. He lost to 2 pretty good fighters. Yesterday, I just thought was extra disappointing because I just thought Hitchens, even though I didn't think he could beat Hitchens, I just would have thought, even based on those previous fights, that he might be able to just give Hitchens something to think about. Liam Paro did. It was a split decision against Paro, but I think we all agree that it wasn't a split decision. One of the judges were pretty or considerate to Liam Paro, but yeah, I just would have expected more. And I think what it did show is that, yeah, he's still probably domestic level, maybe on the fringes of that international level, but as a top liner, yeah, I think that ship has sailed, which is unfortunate. But at the end of the day, he's probably made millions of dollars out of the sport. He's going to be one of the most successful Australian fighters of all time, and that's just a fact. So I think he'll be okay. And looking at the stuff in the change room after the fight yesterday, he was okay. I think he did comment, say, well, I've had a good run. I've consistently fought the best after the best. Oh, it was the best back to back, which he's done. And again, whether you think he's a B-level fighter or not, I think we've got to respect the fact that not only did he beat one of the best going around in TFML Lopez, but also he wanted to fight the Lomachenkos. He wanted to fight the Haneys. He wanted to fight the Hitchens. And I'll say, I think I said to someone today that, as far as names on resumes, whether he's beaten them or not, just the names on his resume far outweighs anyone on the current Australian fighters, including Jai Pataya, including Tszyu, including all of them. He's fought like a 10 times better fighter than those two guys. It's just a fact. I don't know. He didn't beat him, but I'm just saying. So you got to give him some level of respect on those grounds, just in my opinion. Anyway, we'll move on. I've spent about 10 minutes just talking, or 5 minutes talking about that one question. But thanks, Asbot. Welcome to the show. All right, our old mate Big J. Yes, we had a quick chat today. Evening, as discussed today. Time for George to retire and move into commentary or something else, unless he wants to become a cannon fighter for the young up-and-coming fighters. Look, I'm not quite sure about retirement, Big J. Look, if it's in terms of international and the elite level and challenging for world titles, you're right. I think that time is gone. Time to retire, though, I mean, I think, and I did say again on Walking Boxing this morning, the fight for him that's still there is Liam Paro. That is the fight. Now, I don't think George, at 32 years of age and having tasted those massive fights that he's been part of, would want to come back and fight at domestic level. And that's even against someone maybe like a Liam Wilson. I don't know. Liam Wilson obviously is a very, very good fighter. He's challenged for the world title a couple of times. I don't think in George's eyes that would be big enough to get him to come back here. But Liam Paro is a totally different story. We're talking about a former world champion, someone who might challenge for another world title down the track. There's obviously been a little bit of a beef there. That is the fight for me. That is the fight I think that would probably get him to continue on. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, Liam would bury him. Okay, whatever. But, geez, I think they'd both be in line for between $1 and $2 million each if they did fight here in Australia. So why not? You're a long time retired. I don't think he should put his hand up to go back to the States and, as you say there, be cannon fodder, which is all he would probably be if he went back to the States or anywhere else around the world. But here in Australia, the Liam Paro fight would be big, and it makes a lot of sense. Liam Paro on the way back. He's got a lot of ground he needs to make up to get another world title shot. I'm sure after his next fight, if he wins that, he'll be back in line. But the George Kambosos fight, if you think about it, if they fought in, say, 12 months' time or 6 months' time, even who knows. Again, I don't think George fights before the end of the year, but you never know. But if they want to match up Liam Paro against anyone on the No Limit show, yeah, he might earn a couple of $100,000. But, geez, if he fought George Kambosos, we might be looking at $1 million, not $200,000 or $100,000, whatever it might be. So, and it also gets a lot of publicity here in Australia, and obviously projects him on the bigger things after that. So that is the fight I would still like to see. Does he beat Liam Paro? Probably not, from what I've seen in his last couple of fights. But, geez, it would still be big news here in Australia. All right, Eminem. Where are you there, mate? I'll go to your comment. Credit where credit is due. George has been a warrior for our country and has brung, whatever it might be, brought some big fights to Australia, but unfortunately no longer at the level. Yeah, that's what I was saying, Eminem. Look, he did his best yesterday, but I did say that on the walk this morning that he just looked he looked a defeated fighter after, I thought, maybe 3 rounds, maybe 4. And I thought at the time he looked beaten, he looked dejected, he looked faded. And look, Father Time, it catches up with everybody. He's had a lot of tough fights, but he showed tremendous heart to hang in there. And it was a body shot at the end of the day, ironically, that put him down, because I didn't think Richardson Hitchens was a big puncher, let alone to the body. But I think he did say in the change rooms afterwards he got hit right in the breadbasket where he got nailed by Lomachenko. Hitchens had obviously done his homework on him as well and aimed for that once the sting had gone out of the fight after sort of 5 rounds, 6 rounds, whatever it was, and got the job done. But yeah, I'm with you there, Eminem. Credit where credit is due, 100%. And he has been a warrior. But you're right, maybe no longer at the level. Where are they? Hang on, I'll find your comments there, mate. Where are we? Looks like I've lost the comment. All right, well, let's just continue on in the order they've come. Apologies if they're all over the place, but I'll just go by the rundown that I can see here. All right, Glenn, how are you, Glenn? Well done to George. That win deserved win over Lopez changed his life and Australian boxing history. But since then has been found wanting. Give it up, George. You finished. Does that mean you finished in the game or you finished the game? Yeah. Well, that's fair enough too, I think. It's not a bad comment there, Glenn. I agree. And it was well-deserved. And I just don't like to hear or read whatever it is. It was a fluke over Lopez and all the rest of it. Okay, granted. Tszyu Lopez might have taken George a little lightly. Maybe he wasn't 100% prepared. Maybe he had issues outside the ring. That is not George Kambosos' problem. George's whole, I suppose, his whole deal or gig, whatever you might want to call it, is to turn up in shape, ready to go. I think, okay, the Tszyu Lopez things, maybe some of it is true. I don't know. We'll never know. Because he's full of excuses and he'll say whatever it takes to shift the focus from the fact that he was beaten from George. But my thing with that fight is that more than anything of what's been mentioned by some people about Tszyu Lopez, George got into his head 100%. 100% got into Lopez's head, and that, for me, is the reason why he got the job done over Lopez. I think Lopez was more intent on knocking George out, forgot his own superior skill and technique, and stood right in front of George and tried to take him on, and George just picked him off and won a clear-cut decision. I know it was a split decision. I thought George won 7 rounds to 5 or whatever it might have been. That's what I take away from the fight with Lopez. Not all these issues outside the ring. I mean, geez, whenever we heard that, when a fighter loses, it's always this and it's always that. On that night, I don't want to hear about the excuses on that night. I really don't. George Kambosos turned up in shape, mentally and physically, got into the head of Tszyu Lopez and got one of the greatest, or had one of the greatest performances of all time by an Australian boxer. And that includes Fennick and Famo and Rose and whoever else you want to throw in there as well. So that's my thought of George. And again, I don't care what people think about him personally. I'm only interested in the boxing side of things. And you have to give the guy respect. And I know, again, he rubs people up the wrong way, but right from the word go, when he won that belt, he wanted Haney straight away. Well, he wanted Lomachenko straight away, didn't he? And then the war started. He said, right, who's the next best available? Devin Haney, bring it on. Lost to him, he said, all right, let's do it again. Okay. And then he aimed for Lomachenko, and then he obviously aimed for Hitchens. But anyway, I'm sure you guys have got your own opinions, and that's fine. All right, Glenn, Terramona is terrific. Love everything about him. Yep, Australian title. Makes sense. Yeah, look, he's just, again, I'll say, I'm a big fan of Terramona. I think he can do massive things in the heavyweight division. I really do. But what was the point of going to New York and wiping that guy out in a round? It just doesn't make sense. I know it might be to showcase him a little bit, whatever it might be. But what's he had? 9 fights or something now? What is it, actually? I've got box rec up there. Let's have a quick look and see where he's at. I'll just go, sorry guys, I'll just quickly detour here and see if I can find him. Because if I just type in Terramona, it won't come up. All right. Terramona, 7-0. All right. So, of course, yesterday's opponent, Aleem Whitfield, was 9-0, but I'm going to have a quick look at his record and see who he fought. And this is not a nitpicking exercise, by the way. I just want to have a look. I mean, One of his opponents was 5-19. The other one 3-3, 2-7, 2-6, 3-3, 3-13, 0-1, debut 1-2. So they're not exactly world level fighters here. So I understand it was late notice, by the way, to get him over there, and that's fine. But he's had 7 fights and just hasn't fought anybody. I mean, the record's there. The guys he's fought, all just actually the guy from where's he from? He had an 11-1 record. Where's he from? Yeah, but the guys he fought were that was shocking as well. Anyway, enough of Terramona bashing. I'm with you there, Glenn. He is terrific. I think he can do some big things in the sport. I just want to see him step up now. He can handle it. He's 7-0. I mean, he can handle someone with a pulse. So let's see him in there. So again, I get it. It was late notice, and they just wanted to get him a fight. But geez, come on, guys, you got to do a bit better than that. And evening to you too, there, Glenn. All right, M&M, still think a fight with Paro or Wilson could be good for George for a domestic fight. He's only 32, yeah. Agree there, M&M. Tom's dad, Naz, evening all. I heard Terramona say would like to go after an Australian title next. I think he's well ready for Stephen Ivic and would love to see it. Yeah, I'm with you there, Naz. I think he would make easy work of Ivic, if I'm being honest. Look, there was talk about maybe it could be a Jackson Murray. That's out the window now. Jackson Murray's still sort of coming out in the change rooms, isn't he, after his fight yesterday? That was a devastating knockout, that was. But could we see maybe a Huni fight down the track? How good would that be? But I don't think that will happen for quite some time. But, Australian title does make sense, Naz. And look, as I said, I think he'll have probably another 3 or 4 fights, and then he's going to be strictly international after that, and some big fights coming his way. Eminem, I love Jaya Pataya even more now after seeing how he's treated Tszyu since the fight. Very heartwarming watching it all on social media since the fight, looking after him and hanging out like mates. Yeah, I'm with you there, Eminem. I mean, to think that I couldn't have any more respect for Jaya Pataya, well, I do now. I mean, if you don't know, I'm sure you do if you're following this this channel and this YouTube page, that Tszyu had to hang around for the operation on his jaw. His team had to go home. I don't think it was by choice, but if they didn't go, they would have been up for new for airfares, for new airfares. So they had to go. I would have thought that maybe one of them would have hung around. I don't know. That's just to say, hey, mate, we're out of here. Because, I mean, what's the airfares to Italy? 2 or 3 grand? I'm sure someone could have sprung for someone to hang around and look after him. But anyway, Jaya Pataya and his team took him in like one of his own, having dinner with him and drinks and everything else. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And they're a quality bunch, the Opatayas. Had the fortune of having them on one of my cards back in 2017 it was, and just the best people. Such lovely people. And I saw him earlier in the year up in Queensland, and I think Jai's dad said he actually watches the channel, so shout out to Tapu, I think it is. Thanks for watching, mate. But what a lovely guy and team is the whole Opataya team. So good stuff. Eminem says, I think Paro beats George, by the way. Yeah, I'm with you there, Eminem. I think he does beat George. But again, I'd love to see it. I think it'd be a great fight. Just another big one for Australian boxing. As I said before, I don't think Liam Wilson would be enough for George to have a domestic fight, but I think Paro would, 100%. Terramona looks good and he's fun. Can't wait to see the competition stepped up. Yeah, the only thing with him, Eminem, is that I would have thought, like his last fight I think it was his last fight, whatever it was, in January. No, he's had another one since then. He fought on the Opataya and Niika undercard in January. And again, he had a guy who was just, there for the taking. I would have just liked to see him, especially going to America. Maybe Gareth Williams might have said, hey, Terramona, I know we want to impress, but hey, let's, I think his last, what is he? I think, has he won his last 5 fights by first round knockout? Just would have thought maybe Gareth would have said to Terramona, hey, mate, just let's get a couple of rounds under our belt. They would have known this guy was no threat whatsoever. Go out there and practice a few things. Go and practice your jab. I know accidents can happen. You get nailed or a headbutt, whatever it might be. I just would have liked to see Terramona just try and set him up. Get a round or 2 out of him and then put him away. But to go out there like a madman like he did, and I know the opening was there, so you got to take it. But yeah, I just want to see maybe work on some things. It was obvious straight away that, what's his name, Whitfield had nothing to offer. Well, as I said, use the jab, do a bit of moving around, something. But to go out there and just wipe him out, I just don't think there was anything gained from that whatsoever. Yeah, huge respect to Timo Bataille, that's for sure, mate. Benjamin Davis, how are you, Benji? Welcome to the show, mate. Naz, yes, he looks good early on. Great personality as well. Would be easy to promote. Yeah, he's such a, like all the Islanders are, just a lovable type of guy. He's a big fella. He can fight, but outside the ring, you wouldn't get a more affable type of guy. So you can't help but like Terramona. And as I said, I think he's destined for massive things. Still with Naz. Cooper O'Connell looked good against a pretty ordinary opponent also. Hope you get some fights on some big domestic undercards. You and me both, Naz. I did see the highlights of the fight. Look, I don't think... was it late notice or not? I can't remember. It was a couple of weeks anyway. Look, I'm not that stressed about Cooper just starting out, Naz. Look, he's only, 18 or 19, whatever it is. I've got no issue whatsoever with him having maybe 5 or 6 fights like this, early round knockouts, just to get used to being a pro and maybe gather a little bit of a following, maybe just get some eyeballs on him. I'm not that stressed about it. It's a little bit like young Benji Birchall over in Bali. Now, he's knocking over all sorts of young kids over there in the first round, but that's okay. You can't fight here illegally in Australia, so go over there and just build your record and, like I said, get used to being a pro and work on some different things. And you may as well be over there fighting and knocking out the guys he's been knocking out than over here fighting as an amateur and not really getting much out of it. Although you can get experience, of course, but I haven't got a problem with that. But as far as Cooper goes, yeah, he did look good against limited opposition, I know. But this kid can fight, got a great attitude, and I'm just staggered that no one has signed him up, Naz. Now, I've had a few people say, I thought he was with No Limit. No, he's not with No Limit. He fought on the undercard of Tim's fight earlier in the year, but he's not signed with No Limit. Now, this is another thing that absolutely staggers me. Why No Limit, who are the gatekeepers or whatever you might want to call it, of Australian boxing, you throw in Tasman fighters in there as well, they've been entrusted to further Australian boxing in this country. And they've got a young kid, a very, very hot young prospect in Cooper O'Connell, and they haven't rushed to sign him up. And we've seen some of the people, they just keep rolling out show after show after show just to fill the undercard. And you've got a great young kid like this raring to go. Why they wouldn't be falling over themselves to sign him up. So if someone like Mick Francis is watching, mate, you should sign him up for Tasman Fighters. I just think he's a super talent. And as I said, fantastic attitude. And he's going places. So, yeah, again, I can't believe no one has signed him up. Drew Keeley, how are you, Drew? Kambosos has 3 kids, a wonderful wife, and lots of money. I would love to see him retire now and enjoy his future rather than become a resume stepping stone. I'm with you there, Drew. I've got a feeling that his dad would be a little bit like that as well. I know Jim cops a fair bit for the way he carries on in the lead up to fights and all that sort of stuff, but I think obviously deep down he loves his son. I have met his wife too. She is lovely as well. 3 great little kids. I think the conversations would be had that, do we really need this? Now, I don't know how much money he's made throughout his career. Could be $5, $6, $7, $8 million. Who knows? But he's got enough to retire on. Plenty of other business interests he could have. He could probably open up a gym, maybe become a promoter himself. I think someone said before, maybe get into commentary. There's a lot of different things he could do. But he's got a lot to live for, and I'm with you there, Drew. I don't want to see him become a stepping stone. I really don't want that. But the thing is, we used to see it in years gone by because a lot of these fighters, they never had the paydays that fighters like George Kambosos have, so they had to keep coming back. A lot of them had bad representation, bad managers and all the rest, so they had no choice but to come back. George has got a choice, and I'm just hoping he's smart enough that he maybe listens to those around him. I'm sure his wife would be onto him now saying, hey, George, I think you've done enough. But I think he's got a good enough team around him that would sit down and say, let's make a calculated decision. And for me, again, I'll say it, unless it's Liam Paro, again, why go through all that again when you're not really going to get another shot at a world title? And even if he did, again, just humbly, I just don't think he's going to win it, no matter who he fights at the world level. So go back, either retire or fight Liam Paro and sail into the sunset, one of our greatest ever fighters. What's that, Ben? Let's get onto the reel. Okay, have I missed something there? All right. Hey, peeps, bloody hell, it's cold in South Australia. It's bloody cold here at the moment too. mate. No, I was just going to say that at the start of the show. Apologies if I go out here because it's very windy and raining and everything like that at the moment. So I don't want the power to go out. It's actually, what is it here? It's 6 degrees at the moment, so it's actually gone up 6 degrees. And I think, it's going to be 7 degrees tomorrow. So heat wave. So, yeah, I don't know what's like in SA, mate, but I think it's cold all over the place at the moment. All right, Tony. How are you, Tony? Dillian Whyte versus Moses Itauma. Very interesting matchup for a 20-year-old and a 37-year-old who could possibly be in his early 40s. Ashes, what's that? His early 40s, Ashes on a Jamaican passport, and they have a tendency to fib. Well, look, I don't mind the fight, Tony. I think Dillian Whyte will have enough experience and maybe we'll call it boxing IQ to give Moses Itauma a fight. Now, having said that, Moses Itauma might go out there and ice him in 1 or 2 rounds. Who knows? But I just think Dillian Whyte's got enough smarts to give Moses Itauma a fight. And I think it's a really good fight for Moses at this stage of his career. I don't think Whyte's a legitimate chance to beat him, but he has got a lot of experience. I just expect him just to give Moses Itauma just another chapter in his apprenticeship. So I'm not really fussed either way, but I think he's a good opponent for him, Tony. Naz, what did you make of the Filipino Flash getting an interim title? Does he have enough left to get one last full title? Well, maybe, Naz. So, yeah, I did see that he won the interim title. Who are the title holders at bantamweight these days? Obviously, Nakatani. Where is the others? All right. Bantamweight. So, the WBA... So, Antonio Vargas is the full champion. Saya Susumi is the champion in recess. That's right. We've got the champion in recess. And Nakatani, IBF and WBC. WBO is Yoshiki Takawa. Well, you'd think he might get a shot at Vargas, Naz, but look, I don't know. I think he should stay right away from someone like Nakatani. Even Takai, that would be semi-competitive. Takai's not a big puncher, so you never know. He's still a name, Naz, and there's not that many names around that division, so you never know. You never know. Has he enough left to get one last full title? No, I don't think he does, Naz. Big J. Georgie's beaten off, is that better? Off retiring now while he's still at the World Championship level. The real shame will be to continue and wind up being a punching bag for young fellas. Move into commentary. Yep, I agree there, Big J. I think we've discussed that one. Glenn says Moses ices him in 3. Whyte is shot. Yeah, well, it could happen, Glenn. I'm sort of hoping that Team Moses Itauma will tell him to maybe use the opportunity to get some rounds. Dillian Whyte's still a very capable guy. I know, like you said, he's shot there, but he's still experienced. He's been around, been in the ring with a lot of very, very good fighters. So why not use the opportunity to get some good rounds against Dillian Whyte? But as I said, I'm not really that excited about the matchup, but it's probably a good fight for Moses at this stage of his career. What's that, Ben? I was happy to get engaged in a good conversation. Then I remembered it was the internet. I'm not quite sure what you're referring there to, Ben, but that's all good. Let us know what you're thinking. I'm not sure if I missed a comment there. I'm not sure. But, mate, if you've got anything to say, put it in the chat and we'll discuss it. What do we got there? Big J. Actually, Garcia versus George would be interesting at 140. Well, yeah. Look, yeah, it's probably not a bad point there, Big J. There probably are some fights there that would make sense for George. Maybe because, judging on Ryan Garcia's last fight, that was a shocker. But then again, against Haney, he was very, very good. So, yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting at 140. But again, I'll reiterate, mate, I just think George at that real sort of top 10 level, I just think from what I saw yesterday, I think that horse might have bolted there, mate. But you never know. What do they say? If it makes money, it makes sense. Drew. I've heard some people mention a potential Kambosos Paro fight. Thanks, but no thanks. Paro will be too much at this stage. George is too many miles on the clock against the Leach. Yeah, it's good point there, Drew. Yeah, I agree that Paro will probably be too much for George. But look, Liam wasn't exactly that impressive in his last fight either, Drew. So I know it was Richardson Hitchens. Before that, he looked sensational. I think Liam's got a much better chance of coming back into that elite sort of scene than George. And look, don't forget, George is probably 5 years in front of Paro as far as his career goes. So, yeah, I don't know. Look, as I said before, if George was to fight again, Paro would be the one for me to fight. That makes sense. Big money, lots of exposure, all that sort of stuff, all the eyeballs on it from Australian boxing fans. But that, for me, that's it. If it's not Liam Paro, I think forget it. Enjoy your millions and retirement. Glenn says Paro is just better than George and bigger as well. Well, at this stage, yeah. Yep. Not a bad point there, Glenn. G'day, Pound for Pound King. Welcome to the show, mate. Richard, unfortunate what happened with George. He's had a great career, considering how many in the world would want those belts. Just goes to show how hard he worked, made plenty, and should retire and relax. I'm with you there, Richard. Very, very good points there, mate. Just what I was saying earlier. What's that? We've got 35 people. What have we got? Looks like we've got 60 at the moment, pound for pound. So thanks to everyone that's out there watching at the moment. And come on, don't be shy. Put some comments or questions in the chat and we'll continue on. All right, Tony, George's old man needs to be quiet in the corner. Yeah, well, I did mention that this morning on Walking Boxing, Tony. Look, and someone did comment back that I think today that George's normal trainer couldn't be there, a visa issue, whatever. So I can't remember who they said was in his corner. But either way, doesn't matter who they are. If they are the chief second, they should be able to have that 1 minute interval as free, like a dad-free zone, let's just say. Should be just his trainer giving him the advice. And I thought he gave him some good advice. The problem is that then Jim would then come over and sort of contradict him at certain times, or maybe talk over him, or maybe offer something different to what the trainer was saying. And I don't know. Look, I don't think it would have made any difference whatsoever in the scheme of things. But I just think no dramas with maybe Jim being in the corner or anyone else, as a father or friend or whatever being in the corner. But you've got to have those in charge, let them do their job. And I would have not blamed that trainer in the corner by saying, Jim, in between, I say, Jim, will you just be quiet, mate? Let me do the talking. You've hired me to do this job. Please don't talk over me or contradict me. Let me do my job. But and look, Jim just wants the best for George. I get that, but there's no use the trainer saying between rounds, George, you need to step outside to your left a little bit more and try and hook to the head and body or whatever it might have been. And then Jim comes over with, George, you've got to use your jab more and go to the right more. You can see how it would confuse George. But anyway, they know better than what we do, what was going on in the corner. But I just think it was a little bit confusing for George. All right, changing subjects. Old mate Big J, if Tim loses again, is he up shit creek or can he come back? Well, Big J, I think if Tim loses to Fundora for the second time, I think you could make a good case that he's in the same category as George Kambosos. Now, that might give a few of you people out there heart attacks, but that's just life. The thing is, Tim, I know in Australia there were pats on the back all around when he beat Spencer. A lot of the people with blinkers on in this country, by the way. It's all good. Tim's won again. We're back. It's all good. It's a little bit like, mate, it's like the football, mate. Carlton, I'll just use my team as the example. You play one of the top teams, you get absolutely flogged. You come back and you beat the bottom team and all your supporters are saying, hey, we're back. Let's go. It doesn't work that way. So for me, the jury's still well and truly out. Spencer, for me, you may as well say, if you're looking at football terms, is a bottom four side. And Tim did what he should have done and iced him in, 4 rounds, whatever it was. But Fundora is, the number one ranked team in the comp, you may as well say. So it's a whole different ball game. If he beats Fundora, happy days, and obviously he'll have the belts and away he goes. But if he loses, well, where to then, Big J? He would have had 3 fights out of 4 where he's come up against the elite of the division and lost. No different to George Kambosos. No different at all. And you might say, well, George got stopped easily by Hitchens. Well, look at Tim's fight against Murtazaliev. I'm hoping it was just a once-off. Don't get me wrong, but if you're going to judge one, you got to judge the other. And I think that if we're judging George at 32 as being career over by losing to Hitchens yesterday, if Tim loses against Fundora, mate, I'll admit it, I think at the top level, his time is done. That's just my opinion. And he would be in the same boat. He'd have to come back and fight as a Rafa if he wanted to continue his career. Now, Tim's a little bit different to George. I got a feeling that Tim's made more money than George, or has he? I don't know, but I'm just guessing. At least the same amount of money. But that's a scenario we have to face. I just think if Tim loses, he's in exactly the same boat as George. Now, there might be some of you that says, well, he's 2 years younger than George, but whether you're 30 or 32 or even 28, I mean, if you can't beat these guys, well, there's not a lot of future there for you. It's just going to become a stepping stone. So, and the thing is, Tim, after the Murtazaliev fight, was considered damaged goods and pretty much thrown over the shoulder by a lot of international fight fans. Now, here in Australia, we called it an aberration, and he'll be back. And when he beat Spencer, as I said, we all patted ourselves on the back, and Tim's back. Overseas, it wasn't like that. It was like, well, he should have beat this guy. He's going to take a fair bit to get Tim back in the good graces of the American public. If he beats Fundora, of course, all is forgiven. They'll be talking about probably rematches with Murtazaliev. They'll be talking about fights with Ortiz. They'll be talking about fights with Charlo, whoever. But it's massive stakes on that fight, Big J. Massive stakes. Very well and truly at the crossroads is Tim. Because if he wins, it's just the world opens up for him as far as the type of money he could make and the fights he could have. But if he loses, it's pretty much the car's stalled at the crossroads. That's just where he's going to be at. So, not sure what you guys think. Give me your thoughts. Richard, has mainstream media ever heard of Jaya Pataya? Also, not a lot of press of Kambosos up until now, where it's everywhere that he lost. Yeah, well, I commented the other day about this, Richard. Exactly what you're saying there. Look, Jai got a fair bit of media coverage. Look, I'm only talking about here in Melbourne. I can only look at the Herald Sun, which is our major newspaper. I'm not sure what it was like in Sydney and Brisbane and Perth, everywhere else. But here in Melbourne, the Herald Sun, which is the biggest newspaper in Melbourne, there was a little bit about Jai Pataya, online anyway, on the online website, which is all I read anyway. I don't buy the paper. I read it online, pay my subscription, all that sort of stuff. But as for George Kambosos, not one article about him in the lead up to it. Not one. After it, there was videos, and what was one of the articles I read, actually? This is the Herald Sun for you. Well, not just the Herald Sun. This is the Australian boxing media. And I thought, are you kidding me? All right, here we go. This is written by Tyson Otto. I got no idea who Tyson Otto is. But the headline reads, "Utter Destruction. America despises Aussie." Is that the best you can come up with? America despises Aussie. Now, in the article, it says nothing about America despising George, but what a stupid headline. And utter destruction, well, I suppose he's not lying there, is he? What was the other headline they've got? Kambosos KO'd in one-sided world title fight. Well, okay, no real problems with that. And that was it. And a few, hang on. Kambosos stopped after being folded. There you go. They've got Terramona's knockout on there. But all these videos and everything came up after the fact. So it wasn't anything about it, mate. No one knew the fight was on. Even at the pub where we had the fight on, we had maybe 9 or 10 people. That's it. That's all that turned out to watch the fight. So not good. But the mainstream media in this country, Richard, don't even get me started. Now, first of all, I'll say that I love Tszyu, but the amount of publicity he gets in comparison to our other guys is ridiculous. Now, I understand the no limit contract. It's in conjunction with all the major newspapers. They get X amount of articles and all that sort of stuff. Actually, I said this the other day, especially when it came to George and probably to some extent Jai as well, is that this is what we've come to in Australia. Not just, I'm sure it's just not boxing, but it's all different sports. This is what we've come to in Australia, where it depends on what relationship you have with the promoter as to who gets publicity or who doesn't. Now, No Limit has obviously the contract, so whenever there's a Tim or any No Limit fight on, it is just saturated through all these major newspapers. But because George Kambosos is not linked with No Limit, he gets nothing. and Jai Pattaya, because he's with Tasman, might get a little bit. That is just ridiculous. Now, Jai got a little bit because the fight was in Australia. George got nothing because he was fighting overseas. So as I said, is this where we're at in Australian boxing with the mainstream news? Unless you have your promoter has that relationship or paid agreement with the newspaper, you get nothing. That just is disgusting, in my opinion. That George Kambosos, just because he's with Matchroom and fighting in America and not with No Limit, he gets nothing. Bullshit. That is crap. But that's where we're at. So I think I answered your question there, did I? And Jai was, a little bit the same. As I said, he got a little bit because he fought in Australia, but George got nothing. It's just crap. All right, Naz. Can't wait to see Andy Cruz versus Abdullah Mason in a year or two. I reckon it'll be a big deal by the time it comes around. Yeah, 100% there, Naz. He's a good fighter in the Andy Cruz. Mason, I think there's still, because obviously he's fighting for the WBO, isn't it, that Keyshawn Davis has given up or been stripped of. But that is the fight in a couple of years' time, Naz. I'm probably thinking maybe 18 months that Cruz versus Mason will be the fight in the lightweight division. And isn't it a slight on someone like a Tank Davis and Shakur Stevenson that we're talking about these two guys as being the biggest fight in the division, not Davis? I mean, what's Davis doing? Have we heard about the Roach rematch? Is it actually going ahead? Let me just quickly type in his name here in BoxRec and see if it's actually... Has it been announced? Have I missed it? There's been that much going on lately. Maybe I missed it. All right, Lamont Roach. Is that his card actually... No, it's not up. No, okay. So he hasn't been officially announced. But yeah, isn't that just where they're at? That this is the fight we're all talking about already. All right, Drew. I think people need to pump the brakes on the Terramona hype. He's far from proven, and it's still early days. That said, he has my full support. Yeah, well, Drew, look, Terramona falls into the category for me of many other fighters where, like a Moses Itauma and these types of guys, well, why are we getting excited until it's time to get excited? Doesn't make sense. Until the time comes to be excited, I'm just, this is, again, what I said before with whoever commented on my video today. Why didn't you mention Terramona? Well, why? Why would I mention him? Okay, he won. Good on him. Jeez, but who he beat was just shocking. But until he fights someone who can just hold their hands up and offer something, then I just think he's out of the conversation. Potential-wise, he could be anything. But I'm just not getting excited by him until I've seen him fight someone that can actually fight back. Justin Footed, how are you? Justin, welcome to the show, mate. I was impressed by Hutchison's sharp jab, better than Haney's. Hutchison versus Haney would be an interesting fight. Yeah, good call there, mate. I agree. I was really impressed with Hutchison's jab too. It's just a snapping, cracking type of jab. And George, the amount of times his head was snapped back by that jab, it's a very, very good one, mate. And there's lots to read into Hitchens yesterday, but that Richardson, Hutchison, Hitchens, Richardson, Hitchens. I'm with you, mate. It's a bit of a tongue twister. But, yeah, very, very good jab, and it is the key to him as a fighter. I didn't mind the right hand as well. I thought he used that jab to set George up really well and then dropped the right hand on him, although George made it so easy for him, didn't he, especially when he jabbed to the body. That left hand just wouldn't come back to the chin, and Hitchens just kept nailing him with that right hand, didn't he? So, yeah, very, very good fighter and getting better. Hang on, what have we got there? Still with Drew. As faded as Kambosos appears to be, I must say that Hitchens does look like an elite problem for anyone. Yeah, and he is, Drew. I think if you're going through all the best in the division, I would say let's have just a quick look at the others around the weight. We'll include Garcia and Lopez not in there, even though there's talks about going up or whatever it might be. All right, so I think Subriel Matias. I think Hitchens beats Matias. Gary Russell, I think he beats Gary Russell. Alberto Puello. No, I think he beats Puello. Good fight, though. Lopez, I think Lopez beats Hitchens. Styles, just by styles, I think Lopez beats Hitchens. Devin Haney. Very, very good question. I think Haney wins that, Drew. Geez, it wouldn't be the most exciting fight, though, would it? I think Haney beats Hitchens as well. But geez, I'll tell you what, I don't know what to say about Ryan Garcia. I couldn't pick that one because it all just depends on what Garcia is going to turn up. The Garcia that turned up against Haney would be a shot, but geez, the one that turned up against Ramiro, Hitchens would just destroy. So we'll take Ryan Garcia just out of the equation for a little bit. But those other ones that we know we've got a good read on, I think Haney beats him. I think Lopez beats him, but I think he beats everyone else in the division. So some good fights for him coming up. Any news on No Limit silence regarding Sam Goodman? Well, I'm not sure whether you watch the morning shows there, Polly, the walking boxing, but I commented about this the other day. I said, where is No Limit and the media's announcement of Sam Goodman's world title fight, especially No Limit? Now, normally No Limit, when there's a fight like this that happens, they can't wait to pat themselves on the back for a job well done, and as they should. They've got another fighter a world title shot in Sam Goodman, when 6 months ago it looked like it was, who knows what was going to happen for Sam. I don't know why they haven't announced it, Polly. They've put posts all over the social media about everything except Sam Goodman, and I don't know why. Unless you've seen it, an interview with Sam, has Sam been on the podcast, whatever. Even George Rose on there, just say, hey, him get interviewed if he has to, whatever. There's been nothing, and I don't know. But Polly, as far as your question there, any news? No. And the people I've spoken to about it, they don't know either. So is there a little bit of friction there? Has Sam maybe gone against their advice? Who knows? But nothing from No Limit. I hope that's still the case, and I just haven't contradicted myself. Let's have a quick look at No Limit's Facebook page. That's where they put all their news. Where are we? No Limit. Unless it's gone up in the last couple of hours, I don't know. All right, so they've got Liam Paro and Liam Wilson, the promo. They've got a couple of promos on that. They've got, the Tszyu Manny Pacquiao doubleheader. They've got the Cairns events. They've got Tszyu Fundora. As you can expect. That's it. Nothing, mate. So, no, I can't answer your question there. All right, Glenn, I think Hitchens absolutely schools Haney. He's just better at everything. Don't know, Glenn. I'm not going to say you're wrong. I don't know. It's one of those fights that I just think it's really, really hard to pick who would win that fight. Haney, look, I don't know. As I said, I think Haney wins the fight, but I wouldn't be surprised if Hitchens won it either. But I was just going to say, let's hope we get the fight. It's probably one of those fights I hope we don't get. I just don't think it would be exciting at all, but you never know. All right, Richard, plenty of haters for George Kambosos. Sad stuff, and American experts who said he got Tszyu on a bad night joke. Yeah, well, it's what I've been saying for ages, Richard. I'm with you there, mate. What's going on with Paulo Acuso? Very good question. Is there anything on BoxRec at the moment? He was supposed to have signed back with No Limit, but so far, nothing. So let's have a quick look. So Sweet P, so recorded 8-0, nothing on BoxRec. Hasn't fought since November last year when he fought Clay Waterman, and that was on Stan, I think, wasn't it? That was, who was the matchmaker there and the promoter? John Inouye. All right, don't know him. Yeah, don't know Eminem. Crazy, mate. Don't know what's happening with that one. All right, Tommy B. Hi, Tommy. George always believed in himself, always gave it his all, has got the absolute most out of himself in the sport. Can never take that win away from him, as well as the Selby and Bay wins to get there. Mate, I 100% agree. And whether you like him as a person or think he's not as good a fighter as what he thinks he is, well, it doesn't matter. His resume speaks for itself. Oh, yeah, Glenn. Liam, is it Taliva? Did I get that right? I just, how did you pronounce that one again? Taliva, whatever it was. And Terramona, will say, would be fun. It would be, mate. I think Terramona wins that fight, though. I gave him $1. Other than money, I don't see the point in domestic level fights for George. I don't think you fluke 12 rounds for the undisputed. Maybe you climb the mountain, job done. Yeah, well, it could be the point. I gave him $1. Look, I'll admit, I think if the Teofimo Lopez that fought George had a known well, I suppose what George was capable of and went in there 100%. Well, maybe it would have been a different story. But again, that's not what happened. It is what it is. You can't sort of change history. The fact is that TFM Lopez went in there whatever state he was in, and George Kambosos got the job done. But as far as the domestic level fights go, though, mate, I look, as I said, the only one that makes sense for me is Liam Paro. I don't think even Liam Wilson makes sense for him. I don't think the money would be enough for him. Whereas I think Liam Paro would be able to generate some good money for him. All right, Tommy. Also on George, the way he held himself up. After that round 5 body shot and continued to throw punches back shows the heart he has, even after the millions he's already made and belts he's already won. Yeah, I'm with you there, Tommy. I was it the 4th or 5th round, whatever it was. I haven't watched the replay yet. But I'm with you there. I thought that was going to be over right there and then. I thought once he had George hurt, that was going to be it. And he landed some good shots on George, but showed a ton of heart. This is why I got so much respect for him, Tommy. It's a guy that fights anybody, anywhere, anytime, and then has the courage to stand up to him and won't take a knee or whatever. And I know someone said to me last night or something about it. It was something, the old silk pajamas thing was silk pajamas. I don't think it matters with George whether he's wearing silk pajamas or whatever. He comes to fight. I just think it's not a case of him not having the hunger anymore. I just think his time in the limelight has now passed him by, and it happens pretty quick. And he's had a great career, and it's just time for him to maybe move on. That's all. Benjamin, George Kambosos has earned it. He certainly does. Naz would also like to see Terramona get a chance at Valalov in the pros. Yes. Would it be a different story? Probably. I think, pros is a hell of a lot different to the amateurs. Depends on how many rounds it was. Well, the thing is, though, Naz, we haven't seen Terramona go past, 2 rounds, is it? Has it been, I won't go to his record again, but I don't think he's fought many rounds, so you just don't know. I think Valalov, he's had a few fights in the pros, hasn't he? At this stage, I'd still probably back Valalov, but as Terramona gets more experience, then, I think he's going to go past Valalov for sure. Oh, no. Eminem, Jazzy Parr's last opponent is being rolled out again in a few weeks for Chanel Dargan. Is that on the Neutral Corner show? Let me have a look. Jeez, this here, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly what is wrong with Australian boxing and the combat boards. The combat board should take one look at this and say, not going to happen. Now, I'm going to type up, where is it? Chanel, there it is. Chanel Dragon. No, yep. 6-2. So she's fighting, Jitamat Fomta. So she got stopped in 1 round. What she had, 6 knockouts in 10 fights. This, as I said, guys, this is where the combat board, this is what they get employed to do and paid the fees and all that sort of stuff, is to oversee the sport. What are they doing in this situation here? What are the combat board doing here to allow this girl who was stopped by Jazzy Parr, a month ago, to fight Chanel Dargan? And she'll stop her in 1 round again, or 2 rounds, whatever it is, and no doubt they'll roll her out again after that. It is absolute bullshit, Eminem, that she's being allowed to fight again so soon, a month after getting beaten in 1 round, and she's been rolled out again. It's ridiculous. And look, if something bad happened to this girl, it'll be all about, the dodgy promoters and, the boxing is such a bad sport. Well, I want to see the finger get pointed at the combat board to say, hey, guys, do your bloody job. Absolutely ridiculous. All right, explicit. Just a reminder, the Boxing Grand Prix is coming up in a couple of days. Looking forward to it. I did see that explicit. Thanks for pointing that out, mate. I haven't seen who is on the card. I don't think who is out. Obviously Hamden is out. Who was our other guy? Dylan Biggs. Is he fighting on that card? He must be. Hang on. I'll just type in. They probably have to do the draw, do they? Hang on. Dylan Biggs. All right, so, he's fighting Cyril Johnson Suffo, 10-0. So a very, very tough fight. So that is, the next, that's in Riyadh, of course. A lot of fights there. Yeah, so, yeah, make sure you watch that, guys. It's on DAZN, and a really good watch. Had some ripper fights last time they had it, so I'm sure now all the winners are fighting each other. It'll be even better, but I'll be watching out for that explicit for sure. M&M, shotgun fight news soon. Yes. M&M, there will be an announcement soon. Apparently she has got a very, very notable fight, so I'm wrapped for her. Let's hope she can get the job done and go out on her terms. So I'm sure there'll be some news on that soon, mate. Ado, Terramona comparable to Itauma with her matchmaking so far. Itauma stepping up now, though. Yeah, well, that's one good thing. I think Itauma's opposition has probably been a little bit better than Terramona's, if I'm being honest there, Ado, but you're right. At least he's stepping up now. And I'm sure Terramona will. Look, I know, to be fair to him in this instance here, is that here in Australia, no one will fight him, and that's just a given. He can't fight people from New Zealand or Fiji or wherever it might be because they're just nowhere near it. And going overseas, this is a last-minute thing, so I get it. But if they're going to get behind him at Matchroom, they need to match him up with someone that's, as I said before, going to hold their hands up and fight back. So let's hope his next fight is someone like that. Why can't we get actual domestic fights? Well, mate, look, I'll tell you why, Ben or Benji. We don't get actual domestic fights of note because they all think they're better than what they are, and they're all holding out for a potential big fight overseas. All they're interested in, most of them skip the national belt these days. They just want these regional belts with the 4 sanctioning bodies. They want to get them, and then they want to get themselves ranked in the top 15, and then roll the dice, and anything can happen after that. Winning those regional belts gets you in the top 15 of that organisation. All you got to do is just hang in there, keep winning, and you might be in line for a world title shot. It happens. I've seen plenty of fighters here in Australia get shots that they didn't deserve simply because they were just in the top 15 at the right time. The champion wanted a top 15 voluntary, and they get the fights. So with that out there just hanging on a hook, I suppose, why are they going to fight each other for little money and maximum risk? That's why, Benji. This is what No Limit was brought in to fix, by the way, is to make it so we get actual good domestic fights. And I don't think, in my opinion, we've seen many lately. We were getting a few there for a while. I mean, when the likes of, Kamakayo was fighting Koa Mazudia, they're not massive fights, but they're good domestic scraps. I just think the emphasis has sort of gone away from that a little bit lately. And we're getting this thing with No Limit at the moment where it's all about the A side and the B side. They're just being overmatched. I don't know whether that's because of budgets or whatever it might be, but this trend has been in the last few shows, in my opinion, where we know sort of who's going to win the fights before they start. Whereas when No Limit started, a lot of the fights were 50-50. But having dealt with a lot of fighters at domestic level, Benji, that's the reason why. They want too much money. And look, actually, I'll take that back. It's not they want too much money. They want to get paid. They want what they think they're worth. Unfortunately, here in Australia, the money's just not there to pay them. So what do? They don't fight each other. They battle it out on social media, and they just go their own separate paths and go overseas or whatever it might be, and they just never fight each other. Look at some of the great fights that could be made, and they just won't get made because they all just run parallel to each other, trying to do the same thing, trying to get a regional belt, trying to get world ranked, and then trying to ultimately get a world title fight. So that's why we don't get good actual domestic fights, Benji. I mean, you got someone like a Kamakayo here in Australia. He's very vocal about it as well. He knows his worth. But the problem is the money's just not here to pay him what he thinks he's worth or what he is worth. I mean, we should have had talk about Kamakayo. He should be fighting an Isaac Hardman. But it's not going to happen because they can't get the money. No Limit. I can't believe they can't come up with the money, by the way, but they're not prepared to stump up the money that they're probably after. So it's not going to happen. And here we are talking about these great domestic matchups we could have. We're just not going to get, mate. But that's the reason why. They either think they're far too good and don't want to risk their ranking, or they're playing it safe by getting a ranking and is waiting for the phone call to get a big fight overseas, or, as I said, the money's just not right. And the money would never be right here in Australia. I mean, if you're looking at Kamakayo versus Hardman, I would think both of those guys, I don't know what's been discussed between the camps or whatever, but on paper, that fight to me would be worth 30 to 35 each. The problem is the promoters are probably offering him 15 each, or maybe 20 and 15 or something like that, and they're just not going to take it. So that's the way it is, Benji. Glenn says, I know the manager of Dargan. They just can't get her another fight. Tough finding opponents for the girls. I get that, Glenn. Don't fight at all, mate. You know, and you're going to say, well, they have to fight. But, mate, probably not. Look, in this instance here, I get it what you're saying there, but the combat board are the ones I'm aiming at. I get what you're saying there as far as Chanel and her team just want to fight, and that's great. But where's the combat board to say, that's great that you want to fight, she wants to fight, but we aren't allowing it? You know, we're trying to clean up our sport and make it so when we don't have these bad headlines about what goes on, and we allow these fights to happen. For me, it just, in this day and age with everything, I mean, the combat board, where was it, Perth, have just put the kibosh on the bare knuckle stuff. Probably, look, I might be in the minority here, but I'm not against that, by the way. I just think that is the most barbaric thing I've ever seen. Hey, I fully respect the people doing it. I wouldn't do it myself, but I just don't think we need that anyway. I'm probably in the minority. But the combat board there are doing their jobs by saying this is not what we want. Where are the combat boards elsewhere in this situation here saying, hey, understand where you're coming from, you can't get a fight, but we just simply cannot allow this girl to get back in there, especially so soon. A month after being stopped by Jazzy Parr, she's going to get back in there. It's just, I don't like it, Glenn. All right. Drew, Paulie Malignaggi was particularly scathing of Kambosos after his KO loss, but the Lopez win was greater than any Paulie win. Disrespectful. I did see that, Drew. I saw his interview. Yeah, he's never really been a fan of George, has he? Look, I didn't like what he said, Drew, but unfortunately, he was probably right in what he did say. The only thing I will say to that, though, is that Paulie, being an ex-fighter, probably should know better than to be, like you say there, particularly scathing. He probably could have went around it a little bit better, but I think they've had some beef in the past, these two, which is why he probably didn't hold back. But as I said, I would have thought as a former world champion himself and fought a lot of really good fighters on the journey, that he would have understood the George situation and been a little bit more sympathetic. But, yeah, I think they had a bit of a Twitter war at one stage, didn't they? But you're right. George's win over Lopez is probably better than any win that Paulie Malignaggi had, so it is slightly disrespectful for sure. Any idea what day Dylan Biggs is on? We'll keep an eye out for that, Naz. Benji, let's get Tszyu, Zarafa, a Park, and so what's that other, a Jumbo? I don't understand what you're saying there, Benji. Tszyu, Zarafa, a Park, a Jumbo. Okay, I'm not quite sure what you're saying there. I'm not alone saying that the negative $420 before the fight, but I backed it. Okay, what fight was that, Benji? Is that George? Daniel, such a shame for Jackson Murray after that loss. Ryan Waters has come out and unleashed on Jackson online. Anyone know what the beef is? No, I didn't see that, Daniel, what Ryan Waters had to say. Look, I think in that situation, that is where you just keep your mouth shut. No matter what you think of Jackson, you know, I've been a little bit critical of Jackson about him turning up at the public workouts and weigh-ins and all that sort of stuff, or press conferences or whatever, and having a bit to say until he's got some runs on the board himself. But I think the fact that he got absolutely belted, what was his? I won't look it up, but he lost to Honey in 2 rounds last year. It's a thing. I just hope he's okay, but I hope he's learned from this fight, Daniel, that sometimes you just got to be humble until you've got a bit of cred, and he hasn't. But I haven't seen what Ryan Waters had to say, so I'll look it up and see what he had to say. Eminem, wasn't Eddie Hearn pissed about the Hitchens free agency comments? He was, Eminem. I did see that. If you didn't hear the comments, Hitchens in the ring said that he's now a free agent, and Eddie Hearn took exception to that by saying, well, shit, you know, I think when they promoted his eight fights, I think, of his, took him out of obscurity, built him up, gave him, I think he's had 4 main events now, got him a world title, on the verge of some very, very big fights. And he comes out and said, well, isn't it great now I'm a free agent? Yeah, not great comments, Eminem, and I can understand Eddie Hearn being pissed. A little bit different to someone like a Shakur Stevenson. That was really a matchup that didn't really work, I don't think, between Shakur and Eddie. I know they still got 1 fight to go, whatever it might be, but in this instance here, Eddie Hearn's taken Hitchens from the bottom or the ground up and build him up to where he is now. So, you know, maybe those conversations should have been had in the back room or out for lunch or something, not on national TV or around the world on the microphone. But I think Eddie did say he had a word to Hitchens out the back and said maybe that wasn't a smart thing to say. And it's actually blown up in Hitchens' face a little bit, hasn't it? Because Turkey LL Sheik said he won't entertain Hitchens on any of his card unless he's with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. So I'm sure they'll work that out there, Eminem. Sorry, I've just had that one. There's Toby from the UK. How are you there, mate? Welcome to the show. I'm not sure what you're saying there, mate, but talk amongst yourselves. Moses versus Terramona. What do we think? Good, very good question, Nectar of the Gods. I like the question. If they fought, you're talking if they fought now. I think Terramona's a good chance to win that fight. Look, I don't know. You put me on the spot there, Nectar of the Gods. If they fought next, I got my money on our man Terramona. There you go. I think he's got a good chin on him. We'll see. And I think he's got the skills to frustrate Moses. I think he's got the size to frustrate him. And Moses does tend to telegraph his punch a little bit. I think Terramona would be able to, he's got the boxing smarts to pick that. I think he's a good chance of winning that. Having said that, I'm sure you'll come at me and say that Moses knocks him out, but I think it'll be a great fight. All right, Naz. Liam Parra ended up being spot on when he predicted Kambosos wouldn't see the final bell. Yeah, well, Naz, all things aside, mate, you're right, or Liam was right. He predicted it exactly the way he said it would go. And I think to Liam's, in his defence, I know the media jumped all over it and we all had our say about it, what he said about George. But at the end of the day, I think he did clarify it by saying, well, hey, it's nothing personal. I was asked a question and I just said, I don't think George will see the final bell against Hitchens. And you're right, he was spot on. So I'm not sure where you're from, Benji, but just keep it clean there, mate. G'day, Carlo. Thanks for joining in there, mate. Aaron, what do you know about Anthony Poniris? Big prospect from Menai. I've never heard of him, Aaron. Never heard of him. But now you said that, I'm going to type his name in and we'll check him out. And by the way, I don't know how behind I am here, so apologies if this was put on here about an hour ago, but what's his name? Is it Tony? Nah, not coming up there, mate. Nothing coming up there, mate. Unless you've spelled his name wrong, I don't know, but nothing on BoxRec. But tell us about him, Aaron. I'd be interested to hear a little bit about Anthony Poniris. Any behind-the-scenes updates on Tim's prep? No, nothing, Asbot. I spoke to Glenn Jennings, it would have been a couple of weeks ago. When was the press conference? It was a couple of days before that. But I haven't spoken to him since. So I don't know, Asbot. I don't tend to reach out in these times. I mean, they're all busy over there doing the thing. So I'm like you, I'm just reading it online. So, but yeah, I'm hoping to get another word with Glenn when I get over there. I'm heading off on July the 8th to go over there for Tim's fight as well as the 2 shows in New York. So I'm hoping to catch up with Glenn again for an interview. If you didn't see it last time or over there for Tim's fight with Fundora, we had a coffee and a catch up with Glenn, and just you wouldn't get a better bloke in boxing, by the way. Always up for a chat. So if I can hit him up, Asbot, I will, mate, for sure. Maybe I'll send him. Actually, he did say that in the lead up to Tim's fight, he might come on for a chat. So maybe we could do it on a, I'm not sure. I was just going to say we could probably do it during one of these shows and you could ask him some questions. But at the moment, it is 3 a.m. in Vegas, so maybe that's not going to work. It might have to be pre-recorded. Unless we did it on a Saturday morning or something, everyone could sort of join in. I'll see what I can do, Asbot. But Glenn did say, mate, if you want me to come on for a chat, happy to anytime. So maybe in the lead up to it, we'll get him on. We'll do it on a Saturday morning or something, and I'll let everyone know to tune in and you can ask him some questions. All right, Naz, what do you think of Turkey's idea of having prospects on Canelo Crawford undercard? I think it's a great idea. Moton, Mason, Vargas, Terramona, Moses, plenty of potential options. I think he was talking about as well, and Billy Nakatani was another one he was talking about as well. Excuse me. I don't mind it, Naz. Look, the thing is, I think I will say about this is there's a difference between. Oh, sorry, I'll just backtrack a bit. If you didn't know what he was talking about, he said he's not interested in having people on there that aren't entertaining. He wants fighters on there that have a crack. Now, that's good in theory, but there's a difference between running and boxing. Now, what Devin Haney does is running. Make no mistake about that. What Floyd Mayweather did was boxing. Now, I would hate to see someone like a Floyd Mayweather type, and we're probably thinking of someone like Hitchens. Sorry, mental blank there. Richardson Hitchens. By that rationale, I don't think Hitchens would meet the criteria of being that entertaining. I know he got the stoppage yesterday, but he could almost be defined as being boring as well. But he's the type of guy I would like to see on there because he can be entertaining. So, as I said, I just hope they know the difference between boxing and running. I'm with you. I don't want to see Haney on one of the cards. I don't. If he's going to fight the way he currently fights at the moment. I never want to see William School ever again on a card, ever. Those types of fighters, I get that. But I don't want to see guys like Hitchens and these types of guys blacklisted just because they're good boxers. But anyway, we'll see. But I don't mind it. Naz, I don't mind having the prospects on the card. As long as they're not overmatched, I'm happy with it. So what I don't want to see is all these guys you've just listed there up against guys that have got 50-50 records and get bowled over in a round or two. That's what I don't want. I don't want them thrown to the lines. I want to see him in with good, competitive, maybe journeyman or whatever, who can give them a good fight, or other prospects, whatever it might be. And let's get it going on that. I don't want to see, one-sided fights there, mate, but the concept is good. All right, Carlo. George has had a great career, great CV, but it's now over. Best option is hometown bout with Paro. Great for both for different reasons. Props, George. Yep, exactly what I've been saying, Carlo. I agree, mate. Drew says, I've heard potential rumours about Bolachuk and Murtazaliev. Cracker of a fight. I have Murtazaliev winning on points, but with zero confidence. Yeah, I talked about that, I think, yesterday or the day before, Drew, on Walking Boxing, that they're talking about, that Bolachuk-Murtazaliev fight. I think it's a great fight. I probably differ a little bit. I think Bolachuk can win that fight. Now, I know we're all getting excited about what Murtazaliev did against Tim. But before that, I don't reckon Murtazaliev had been that impressive. And I know he landed the big left hook from Hull against Tim and got him out of there, and that's all we've got to go on at the moment. But I just think Bolachuk is not the type of guy that's going to get blown away like Tim did. I think he hangs tough, he hangs in there, and maybe if he takes it to the later rounds, he can get over Murtazaliev. That's a great fight. I'm not sure when they were talking about that fight, Drew. Was it either? It wasn't Alexander Usyk and Dubois. It was maybe the August 16th fight I think they were talking about. And that's got Itauma and Dillian Whyte on there, and Sam Goodman's on that card as well against Nick Ball. So you never know, mate, but great fight. Naz says, Zach win Moses and Moses Itauma for Canelo Crawford undercard. Won't happen, obviously, Naz, because Itauma's fighting in August, so that won't happen, but you never know. He might have a quick turnaround. Tony, next to Sitch Duran, Russ Amber has to be the second best cut man in the business. Maybe Tim should have a yarn to George and see if he can get Russ in his corner for Fundora. Won't happen, Tony. No, he's got a very, very close-knit team, has Tim, and it's going to take a lot more than criticism from all of us to split the team up there, Tony. But I'm with you. And Stitch is such a great guy. I've met him a few times. Really, really good. Actually, I think we did an interview on here with him once, but I met him a few times over there with the Maloney boys because he goes in their corner, and you wouldn't get a better bloke just to sit down. I love just sitting down with guys like him. Had a coffee with him when we were overseas, and to hear his stories about that when he was with the UFC and all his years as a boxing cut man, and you could sit down and listen to these types of guys forever. You really could. But yeah, maybe they could sit down and have a chat with him, Tony, but not going to happen, mate. They're not going to get rid of his current cut man. No way. Drew says, if Tszyu loses to Fundora, there'll be no more skipping the line or fast-track shots at titles based on his name. Nah, as I said before, Drew, I hate to say it, but I think at that real elite level, I think it could be curtains for Tim. I really do. So it's just so much riding on this fight. Isn't Murtazaliev fighting Lubin next? Well, it's been talk about it, Ado, but nothing's locked in at the moment, mate. There's been a lot of back and forth and, social media back and forth as well. But as far as signing on the dotted line, nothing yet, mate. So it would be a good fight as well. But I'd prefer Bolachuk and Murtazaliev, if I'm being honest, over Lubin, that's for sure. Cal Jane, congrats to Richardson, but George tried and had heart. 100% he did, Cal. Yep, sure did. Batman says Tszyu is beating Fundora. I hope you're right, Batman, but it's going to be a tough, tough fight. All right, Nectar of the Gods. If Tim loses to Fundora again, the Yanks will pay absolutely no attention to him, and that's where the big money is. While the door will be shut in his face, Nectar will be shut in his face. He will be. It would take something extraordinary for him to get back. He'd have to work his way up the rankings. It could take him another 2 years to get a world title shot if he worked his way back. That stage, he's 32, 33. You just don't know. That's what I said. I mean, such massive stakes on this fight. There really is. If he wins, it is limitless to what's open there for him. Excuse me. But if he loses, could be curtains. That's how finely sort of balanced this fight is. Might be a silly question, but here goes. How good really is Gilberto Ramirez? Well, he's pretty good, Tony. He's had a very, very good resume. He's a super middleweight champion as well. A light heavy, was he? Whatever it is, but, mate, very, very good fighter. Not good enough to beat Jaya Pataya, but a very, very good fighter, mate. I just want to have a quick check of his record, just quickly. Gilberto Ramirez. Where is he? Zerdo. All right. So record 47-1. The sole loss was Dimitri Bivol, so that probably says a lot. So he was a 168-pound champion. Did he win the light heavyweight title or just fight for it? I think he might have just fought for it. Just going through his resume now. I think he just fought for it and was beaten by Bivol, I think it was. But then, obviously, he won the light heavyweight, the cruiserweight title, and his last fight was against Chris Billum-Smith. His next fight is against Junior Dorticos, and then hopefully it'll be Jai Pataya after that. But a very, very good fighter there, mate, and he will give Jai some problems, but I think Jai beats him if they do fight. Glenn says, I'm thinking Fundora has improved since the first fight with Tim. It's a 50-50 in my eyes. I'm 100% with you, Glenn. That's exactly the way I see it too. We've talked about it on here anyway, but a lot of people saying, well, just look what Tim did to him in the first 2 rounds of the first fight. Just take nothing away from that, guys. Fundora will have improved. The fact that he's a world champion, I think, I was going to say, excuse the pun, but walking a little taller. He doesn't need to walk any taller, but I think as champion, he would feel taller inside. I'm with you. I think it's a 50-50 fight, 100%. Drew says, the problem with some of the newspaper journalists is that I don't actually think most of them follow the sport, just cut and paste broad stroke articles with no nuance. Well, I've been saying that for a while, Drew, and you see them, they get on main event when Tim fights, whatever, and all they're doing is parroting what they read. And sometimes you can tell what sites they've gone to, because I read most sites myself. I know there's a lot of them out there, but I try and read as much as I can. And sometimes I think, geez, that sounds awfully exactly like the article I read yesterday by some other guy in America or whatever it might be. They skim the surface. They don't go deep. That's why I like the social media guys out there, because they actually know what they're talking about. These guys they might do multiple sports, and all they do is skim the surface with the obvious sort of points of what's happening. They don't delve into it and know the finer points of what might be happening in a current situation or with a fighter or a camp or whatever it might be. They state the obvious, and that's all they do. So I'm with you there, Drew. What's that one? Ramirez is solid, but just each his fight with Bivol to get where his skills are. Just watch his fight with Bivol to get where his skills are at. Yep. He is limited in certain ways, but a good fighter overall. Eminem recently saw a fight posted for Kay Scott versus Olivia Curry for unified women's middleweight titles. The other 2 belts, Desley Robinson holds. Well, there you go. Hang on. Kay Scott. Where are we? All right. Nothing announced or nothing on BoxRec at the moment, Eminem. All right. Olivia Curry. Let's have a quick look at her. I don't know about her. I am guilty of not really following the girls too closely, though. All right. She is 7-2-1. All right. So 7-2-1. Last fought about 14 months ago with a draw. Before that was a loss. Yeah, I don't know, Eminem. Never heard of it, so I'll have to take your word for that, mate. But, geez, I'm going to say that's almost what's wrong with women's boxing, that you can be beaten by Desiree Robinson and go straight into not just a one world title fight, a double world title fight. So, anyway. What's that, Tony? I don't know much about Ramirez, but the painter at work says he will walk right through Jai in less than 8 rounds by way of KO. Well, geez, Tony, we better listen to the painter at work. Mate, look, who knows? Maybe Ramirez could beat Jai. I doubt it, though. I think, well, you just never know, but maybe the painter at work should have his own YouTube show or something, mate. But look, it's possible. It's possible. But I don't know. I just think Jai is too fast with his hands and on his feet. I think he's way too busy. I just think Gilberto Ramirez or Zerto is just way too slow to be able to go with Jai. The way I sort of see that fight going is a little bit like the Breeders' fights. I think Jai would, in the first maybe 8 rounds, might win 7 of the 8. And then Ramirez would come home strong in the last few rounds, but it wouldn't be enough and might lose, 9-3 or 8-4 or something like that. But, mate, I just hope we get an opportunity to see the fight. I really do. I'm sure we will, but I'm not sure he beats Jai, let alone gets him out of there in 8 rounds. But you never know. All right, good fight night coming to Cairns next week with Liam Paro and Liam Wilson against international opponents. Let's hope North Queensland gets out and supports the fight card. Yeah, good stuff, Harry. I really hope so, do. I think they will. I mean, Liam especially is from up that way, isn't he? Is he more from Townsville, I think, maybe? But Liam Wilson, again, a Queenslander. Got to support that Queenslanders. So I'm sure they'll get a massive crowd up there, Harry. Looks like an awesome stadium too, by the way. I did see some social media clips and really looks state-of-the-art. So I'm 100% sure they'll get a great crowd and it'll be an awesome night of boxing up there, Harry. We're going to have it on at our pub. I doubt anyone will turn up, but if you're in the Bendigo area, call in. I did see someone yesterday, and I can't. If you're watching the show, apologies if I don't remember your name, but he did say he watches the show and called in and watched the Kambosos fight yesterday. So thanks very much, whoever that was. And again, apologies that I can't remember your name. I'm one of those people where I'll shake your hand and everything, but your name just goes straight over the head. So apologies about that. All right. If Jai just flew the Aussie flag where he was born and raised, he might get more support. Take a lesson from Terramona. Yeah, well, Big J's been on about that a fair bit, hasn't he? So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not that against it, Nectar. I think we discussed it last week as far as the anthems goes. I think you got to pick an anthem. You can't have two, especially if you're not born in a country. Now, if Jai was sort of born and raised in Samoa and then came over to Australia, I can sort of understand it. But the fact, if you're born and raised somewhere in a country, I think you should just pick one anthem. I've got no dramas carrying the flag into the ring. That is his heritage. I know George does it and others have done it as well. But, yeah. And as far as more support, yeah, I don't know, Nectar. Who knows? You can't sort of, put thoughts in people's minds about how they might think, but you never know. I just think it just comes down to exposure. And I just don't think the Aussie media give a shit, Nectar. I think they just put out what they need to, and they just don't, what's the best way? They don't invest in the fighters here, the media. And let's face it, the only reason Tim got as much attention as he did is because of his last name. He's been a very, very good fighter, of course, but he was getting major coverage when he'd had 10 fights and fought nobody. So it does play a part. If the media is right behind you, they can make you. Look back in the day with Jeff Fennick and Lester Ellis and all these guys. The media used to love that, especially Jeff Fennick. He was an absolute media darling, and he played it up and was such a lovable guy. And this is before the internet and social media and all that sort of stuff. And national hero without all that stuff, and it just all came down to media coverage. So in this instance here, I blame the media. I really do. Glenn, your mate needs to pick another sport. Naz, I'm not too sure about Sky Nicholson going down to Super Bandon with Ali Scottney waiting there. I hope she does well, though. Yeah, look, I'm not sure why she would do it. Naz, obviously she can make the weight comfortably, but up until she lost to Tiara Brown, she looked strong at the weight. She actually looked a good size at the weight. All their fights were quite easy. Tiara Brown, I mean, she's tough and strong. I'm not sure whether, unless they've been thinking about it for a while and the Tiara Brown loss maybe just, made their minds up for them. But I don't know. I thought Sky looked really good at featherweight. And if she goes down, you're right, Ellie Scottney there. I think Ellie Scottney's a better fighter than Tiara Brown. I think she beats Sky Nicholson as well. So I hope she hasn't gone down there just because Tiara Brown's not there. And look, the Tiara Brown fight was actually quite close. I thought it could have gone either way myself. I had Tiara Brown winning 6 rounds to 4, but there was a couple of very, very close rounds. But as I said, maybe she's been making the weight easy for a while and has just used the Brown losses maybe just a reason to actually make the move. But I'm with you, mate. I think Ali Scottney beats her. I wouldn't mind seeing Sky in with Shannon O'Connell. That's the fight I'd love to see. Whether it happens or not, I doubt it, but you never know. Drew, Cruz looks sharp and appeared to throw more meat on his punches on the weekend. His trajectory seems to be travelling along nicely. Well, it looks like he'll have maybe one more fight, Drew, and he'll be in with Mason for... No, not Mason. He's got the IBF belt. Who was it? I think Abdullah Mason. He's got the WBO belt. Who's... Enlighten me. Hang on, I should know it here. Hang on. The IBF. Jeez, mental blank. Oh, Muratalla. Sorry, I don't know why I had Abdullah Mason in my head. Yeah, Raymond Muratalla. That's who he'll fight next. He's now the undisputed. Is there such a thing as the undisputed #1 challenger? Well, that's Andy Cruz. So whether Muratalla has to have a mandatory first, normally they let you have a voluntary. So it might be 2 more fights down the track. Cruz will probably have another fight in the meantime, and they should get it on early next year, I would think. Tony says his mate's a painter. Too many paint fumes for far too long. Nah, it's all good. Tony obviously knows he's boxing, so he's entitled to his opinion, mate. Hitchison got hit a lot more by George than Devon did. Yeah, maybe. Pound for pound, yep. But on the other hand, Hitchison didn't run. Devon Haney, I mean, did he run or not? I thought he did a bit of running, Devon Haney. Hitchison stood in front of George. That's probably why he wore a few, but I think Devon was a shutout over George, but Hitchens, he really made a statement against George. Devon might have won every round, but didn't really gain a lot of credits, I don't think. But Hitchens, the way he just stood in front of George and just broke him down and got him out of there, I thought was a lot more impressive than Devon. What's that, Scott? Okay, Scott is pretty past it, so can't make a call on that one. Hope Scott wins, then her and Desi rematch for undisputed. Yeah, well, if that was the case and they did fight, we might have 2 undisputed female champions because, of course, Shanika Johnson's got her undisputed fight. When is it? Next month in New York. And I can't wait to actually be there. I know I've mentioned it a couple of times, but I'm really looking forward to the all-female card. Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, and having Shanika on the undercard for undisputed, plus all the other fighters on there as well. Savannah Marshall and who else is on there? It's packed. It's a jam-packed card. Really looking forward to it. Batman. Hitchens' jab was superb. I put a bet on during round 2 for Hitchens to stop Kambosos. It was clear he was going to get stopped. Jab couldn't miss, and everything was working off the Hitchens jab. I'm with you, mate. I must admit, the guys I was sitting with watching the fights at the pub after the 3rd round, I said, Hitchens is going to stop George, I think, unfortunately. And they were like, well, no, George, he's hanging in there. He's doing all right so far. But you could just see, I'm with you, Batman, you could see the jab was landing. George, even after the 3rd round, just looked a little bit dejected. I think it was his writing on the wall after that. And I'm surprised he actually lasted 8 rounds, if I'm being honest. Drew says, is Nikita Tszyu still injured? It feels like his career seems in limbo at the present time. Well, it sort of does, Drew, doesn't it? Because he's supposed to fight in August, although it hasn't been anything really in concrete yet. And that's only, about 8 weeks away. So I don't know, Drew. I've heard lots of different things and spoken to a few different people. They're all saying he's on track for August at this stage. But he, as far as I know, up until last week, hadn't started punching hard on the bag. So I don't know. I think what they've said is, let's pencil in August at this stage. If it's not August, well, we'll just keep putting him back a month for each of the No Limit shows, and we'll just see what happens. So you can't rush it. He's not that old. Was he 27? But I think he's probably got to get a wriggle on pretty soon. But it's obviously a lot worse injury than what we thought. I think when they said after the fight he might be out for a while, I think we expected 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. It's been, a year now almost, hasn't it? So, yeah, so hopefully it's getting better. I'll just take a drink here. All right, Hitchens has a better jab, better right hand, better body work, and can defend in the pocket and at range. Haney just can't do that. Yeah, you're right, Glenn. I think Hitchens is more multi-dimensional than Devin Haney. Devin Haney hasn't really got a lot, has he? He likes to box and move and jab and tie up and twist and turn and everything else. Doesn't ever really set down on his punches. Doesn't really try and get opponents out of there, where Hitchens does. Hitchens reminds me a little bit of Floyd Mayweather Jr. Obviously not as good as Floyd, but just the way he doesn't mind standing in front of them, making them come to him, and then he makes them pay on the counter. Good, slick jab. Yeah, he's got some ability, Hitchens. And probably goes to show what a good job that Liam Paro did against him as well. Won a lot of rounds against Hitchens, so maybe that could be a rematch down the future as well, but we will see. What's that, Ali? Sorry, late to the show. What's your thoughts on Hitchens and Eddie Hearn? Can't believe Hitchens said, yeah, it's a free agent. Yeah, we went over that before, Ali. Yeah, I think Eddie Hearn would have had some stern words with him out the back there, mate, and I'm sure they'll kiss and make up. Is Nikita going to fight Zarafa? Yeah, well, that's the word, Cal. I don't know. I commented again about this on Walking Box the other day. It was in some of the news sites that he was going to fight Zarafa in August, but I've heard that it's been talked about. The media obviously ran with it, but no decision has been made until Nikita is 100% ready to go. Now, Zarafa apparently said that it was part of his contract that he fights Nikita. Well, my feedback to that would be, well, you can't put a guaranteed fighter in someone's contract without the approval of some like Nikita. If Nikita's team, and I doubt that Glenn Jennings would have said, yeah, it's okay, you can put Nikita in Zarafa's contract. No way. They march to the beat of their own drum. They're going to allow any leverage for Zarafa. So I don't believe that. But Zarafa would want to fight. I think he will fight in August, but I'm not sure to be against Nikita. I think, if anything, they'll want to tune up for Nikita before he fights Zarafa. They probably need one. So I don't think being out for a year, they'll put him in with Michael Zarafa. But maybe at the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if in August they might fight on the same card against separate opponents and maybe fight in December or something like that, November, December. But we'll see. Pound for pound. Tszyu didn't adjust to Kambosos' overhand right that he was landing from round 1 to 12. Yeah, well, it's too late when you're in the ring, isn't it, pound for pound, that to make adjustments sometimes, as George found out with him getting tagged with that right hand by Hitchens every time he went to the body with his jab. And maybe, look, I just think with Tszyu, didn't rate George at all, went in there and paid the price, didn't do any prep, didn't do any game plan, anything like that. He just thought he'd go in there and be himself and get the job done. George obviously had a great game plan, and he got the win on the night. So, Ali, George's career reminds me of Billy Dibb. They have only really lost in world title fights and to the best in the division. Yeah, that's right, Ali, and you can't take that away from him. Who wins, Hitchens and Haney or Hitchens and Tszyu? Great matchups. Yeah, well, as I said before, I think Haney and Tszyu both beat Hitchens. Probably got a better shot at Haney. I think Tszyu he's got the keys to the Hitchens puzzles, all the ones that George couldn't solve. Yes, so I think Tszyu's got the smarts and the skills to unlock those puzzles of Hitchens. Haney's a 50-50 one for me. What we got there? Glenn, Hitchens in the first fight and 50-50 him and Tszyu for me. So you think he beats Haney and 50-50 for Tszyu? I'm not sure what you're saying there, Benji. What are you saying? Zero facts, all just envy. I have no idea what you're saying there, Benji. But if you're going to be in the chat, mate, just keep it respectful, mate. It's okay for everyone to disagree and have the conversations, but I'm not going to put up with any insults there, mate. So if you want to be in the chat, then be polite. All right. Ali, frustrating as it could have been so different for Aussie boxing. Huni, Kambosos and Paro losing world title fights. Hopefully Tszyu and Goodman get the win. The more Aussies win, the bigger our fight nights. Well, it's a good call, Ali, because last year was such a massive year. We had 20 Australians in world title fights. It was huge. It wasn't looking that great this year. We've already had Huni for the interim title. We've had George and Liam Paro. And we're about to have Tim and Sam Goodman. So and Jai, of course. So some massive fights sort of that have either been or coming up. So I think it's going to be a big year for Aussies. I was going to say we won't have the success we had last year, but when you think about it, we didn't have that much success last year either, did we? Even with all those Aussies in world title fights. But I just think it's great, Ali, that year rolling into the next year, we're having more and more Aussies roll into world title fights, and that shows that what we're doing here is working, and I think it's fantastic. Glenn says, Goodman is going to get mauled by Ball. Terrible matchmaking, my opinion. Yeah, I get it, Glenn. But look, that wouldn't play into Sam Goodman's thinking whatsoever. He'd be thinking he can win the fight just like he thought he could beat Inoue. You got to take the big fights while they're there, whether you think they're going to win or not. I wouldn't care if Goodman got a shot at Canelo. He's going to take the fight. This is why these guys do it. So I don't think it's terrible matchmaking. I just think Ball's looking for probably an opponent. Obviously, he probably sees Goodman as a credible opponent. Maybe Sam's the only one that's sort of going to be available around that date, and they've gone for him. So I don't think it's terrible matchmaking. I think it's not a bad fight. I think Ball probably wins the fight, but certainly not going to discredit Sam Goodman for taking a world title fight. Let's not forget, this is why these guys do what they do, to get these type of opportunities and big paydays. So good on Sam Goodman, in my opinion. Ali disagrees. I'm worried about the cut opening up early for Goodman. His last fight, it looked nasty, and Ball may expose this early. Yeah. I don't think it was a nasty cut, was it, last time, Ali? I thought it was definitely he got cut. I think they collided heads, didn't they? No, it wasn't. It was a punch, wasn't it? Yeah, I don't think it was overly nasty. I think he'll be okay. Look, you got to remember, the getting that type of cut in training camp is not good because the fight's going to 100% be delayed. But in a fight, I think it was just a hindrance to him, really. I don't think it was in any danger of being a really bad cut and but having the fight stopped. So I don't think if that is the cut that opens up any time during these fights, it's no drama. The only issue he's going to have is in sparring. If it opens up, it's going to keep delaying fights. But as far as happening in a fight, no issues. It'll never get stopped on that cut. Yeah, Richard always wanted to see Shotgun versus Tszyu Ramadan. I tried my hardest to get that fight done, Richard. One of my first shows that I did, I offered Tszyu a very, very good payday because I didn't know about boxing. I thought, oh, well, just throw money at him and it all happened. And it was turned down by Tszyu and her team. Shannon would have fought for pretty much nothing. She wanted that fight. This is back in 2015, so it would have been a really good fight back then. And I threw probably, for a women's fight, even now, 10 years later, which would be considered a very, very good payday. And for whatever reason, Tszyu and her team turned it down. So it is what it is, but it would have been a great fight. Richard, I think Shotgun would have won the fight, but would have been good to see. Glenn, I get he needs a fight, but God, is it really worth the risk? And it's upper weight class as well. Mate, I can't see any reason whatsoever where you'd be critical of Sam Goodman taking a world title fight. I don't get it. This is why these guys are in the business, to get these fights. And you have to go through so much to get an opportunity. So, mate, I can't agree with you there. I think the world title fight's there. It doesn't matter who it is, you take it. It's as simple as that. It doesn't matter whether it's worth it. What is it? What's he saying there? Is it worth the risk? Risk of what? Losing a world title fight? Isn't that what you're doing? He's not risking a shot at a world title fight. He's got a world title. This is the only risk you take these days. When you fight a fighter that's maybe not for a world title, I mean, he's got some cred, that is a risk and maybe not worth the risk. But when it's an actual world title fight, what exactly are you risking? You're risking losing a world title fight, a big money world title fight. So I don't really understand the comment there, Glenn. But wouldn't matter whether the fight was at middleweight. It's a world title fight, you take it. So, but yeah, is it worth the risk? 100% it's worth the risk. What do you mean it's not a risk? What are you risking? You're not risking anything. Anyway, OG, I found it interesting going through Box's record. There's some interesting ones out there like Chris John, a fantastic fighter, OG. I think he was WBA Fighter of the Decade when Mayweather and Pacquiao and all that were around. A sensational Indonesian fighter, managed, of course, by the great Tony Tolge and Angelo Hyder, and a legend over there in Indonesia. Yeah, that's right. Beat Juan Manuel Marquez. Exactly. What's that, Ali? The money isn't worth it, but do they get paid going to the alternative route without fighting each other? It may be better to build the profile of these fighters, create further interest, and increase pay. No, Ali, it doesn't. I think sometimes we forget what we're in. We're in the business of fighting. And the reason we fight, okay, there's money involved, but the reason we turn professional is we want to fight for world titles. This is what they are. They're world titles. This is what we aspire to. It's not about, well, it's a bit risky, so we won't take the fight. If it's a world title fight, are you kidding me? It's a world title fight. You take it 100 times out of 100. There is no alternative. This is why we do it. You might, look, if you're an up-and-coming contender, you might have a choice of which world champion you're going to fight. That's a little bit different. You might think this one's better than that one and whatever. You got to look at the big picture. But when you get offered a world title fight, newsflash, you take it. This is why you do the sport. Sam Goodman wouldn't have hesitated for 1 second. I doubt his team would have even asked him. They would have said, guess what, Sam? We've just signed you up for a world title fight, because this is what they get paid to do, to get their fighter world title fights. There is no other reason these fighters do it, guys. They do it to win world title belts and the money and everything that goes with it. This is why they do it. And to not take a risk, I don't get that. I don't get it. All right, Spirit Ball. Who is your all-time favourite boxer? In Australia, Spirit's got to be Jeff Fennick. Massive Jeff Fennick fan. I grew up with Jeff, and he was my hero. Internationally, it would be Vinny Pazienza, my favourite fighter. But I used to love Julio Cesar Chavez, Hector Camacho, Roberto Duran. I used to love those type of fighters. But my favourite international fighter would be the Pazman, the Tasmanian Devil, and domestically would be Jeff Fennick. Spirit Ball. George Kambosos is better than... Hang on. Now you're getting a bit carried away there, Spirit. Let's just relax and take a breath there, mate. He's not better than George Foreman, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson. Anyway, Jackson Murray fighting Grutch next. Both lost last fight, so why not? They don't like each other. I would like to see maybe have a tune-up or two before they fight each other, Richard. All right, Paul Michael Craig. Should George retire or come back and fight Paro? And I was discussed this earlier, Paul, but I think he should retire unless he gets Liam Paro in Australia. Apart from that, I don't see any fight making sense for him. Grutch versus Murray would be a cracker and crossroads fight for both of them. I think either one of their careers finished with a loss would be a fantastic fight. I don't think it's career over. I think they're both young guys. Ali, I think, I don't think either one of them are ever going to fight for the world title. So these are two guys that are just going to purely fight for whatever is the big fight at the time and the highest money fight for them. So I don't think either one of them will be finished after this one. Unless one of them gets KO'd brutally. That's probably a bit different because it would mean 2 bad knockouts in a row. But yeah, I think if it's a close fight, I don't think the loser's going to lose much, mate. What's that there? All right, we'll just let Spirit Ball have his say there. I like the way Jackson goes about it. He tries to build fights on his personality. However, I think Grutch gets the win. How about you? I think Grutch wins that fight, Ali. It's okay from the way he goes about it, Ali, but you still got to do it a little bit humbly, especially when you've got no cred. You've got 0 cred on your record. I think you've just got to play it safe a little bit until you've had a few quality wins, Ali. That's my only tip for those guys. All right. I think Tim's a big chance this time against Fundora. He knows now not to be reckless after the Barkram fight. It'll be interesting. What are the odds? What the odds are on both fighters? I don't know the odds at the moment, Julian. Yeah, I'm with you. I think if Tim fights cautiously and really picks his punches, really probably walks down Sebastian Fundora and doesn't get reckless, he really takes his time in the earlier rounds and then builds as the fight goes on, I think he's a big chance to win. But Fundora's such an awkward guy, mate. He's so obviously tall and rangy. I don't mind the fact that he likes to trade, even though he's so tall and rangy, and that's obviously going to play into Tim's hands. But Tim has to be calculated. If he just tries to just out-punch Fundora might get the better of him. He's got to be calculated and take his time, or else it could be a repeat of the first fight. Yeah, Eminem, I saw that, mate. Ben Hussein retired. Yeah, not good. He had a few big fights sort of planned, but that's the way it goes, mate. But, it's a shame to see him gone because it was definitely entertaining, that's for sure. Ali, if Tim loses, does that set up as a Rafa fight for the end of the year in Stadium? No, it does not, Ali. I would think if Tim loses to Fundora, I wouldn't be surprised if you see him out until next year to take the rest of the year to think exactly about what he wants to do, because he'd have some major decisions to make. I think he would know that maybe his time at the elite level might be almost over before it began, because let's face it, he didn't have many fights at the top level. He sort of won that belt against Mendoza and then went straight into Fundora, straight into Murtazaliyov, and now he's back into Fundora. So not a lot of time at the top. And I would think if he loses, Tim and his team would sit down and say, well, where do we go now? Again, like, it's probably not as bad as George, because George is obviously looking very shop-worn, where Tim doesn't look that way at the moment. But I definitely don't think he would fight Zarafa by the end of the year, mate. It'll be next year sometime. Naz, I watched Crawford Spence replay again over the weekend. What a performance by Crawford. So precise, unbelievable feet and counters. He's a big chance if he can get back to that level versus Canelo. 100% Naz. Be interested to see how he carries the weight. That is the big sticking point, isn't it? Richard Kambosos got a lot of coverage in mainstream media until he lost the belts. Yeah, he was all over the mainstream news until he did lose the belts. Richard, now they don't want to know him. So unless he's lost now they want to know him. Who do you think Skull will be fighting next month? Yeah, I did see that. It's on the undercard of... Who is that undercard? Is it Joe Cordina? Is that the one? Who else is on that card? Well, it's obviously not on Box Rank at the moment, but don't know, mate. I don't think it'll be anyone too flash. Let's just put it that way. Polly, the media isn't interested anymore. I've seen Jonathan Brown do expert commentary on Fox. Yeah. If you don't know who Jonathan Brown is, AFL legend, doesn't really know much about boxing. He's a fan, not sure he knows too much about it. The media will give more attention to Gallon Williams than they'll give to our actual boxers. That's it in a nutshell. There, Polly, you've said it right there. Gallon and Williams will get more publicity than Opataya did and what Kambosos did. The only one they won't get more than is Tszyu. It's just boxing in this country, as far as the media goes, is an absolute joke. It really is. What's that? Devon did stand in front of him in the second fight. Yeah, I suppose he did to some extent, mate. Yep. Was even walking him down, but didn't have the power to get him out of there. First fight had a lot of clinching. Yeah, it did. Yeah, no, it's a good call, pound for pound. You're right. He did. And that's. I must admit, I haven't ever watched that fight on replay, so it's a little bit blurry for me. But I just remember seeing the first fight a couple of times, and that's all he did. Mark, I'll be at the female card. Well, I'll be there too, Mark. Can't wait, mate. I'll be there on the Friday night to see that card, as well as a Saturday night at Flushing Meadows where they have the tennis to see Zapata and Stevenson, Balunga and Shiraz. So then I'll be heading across to Las Vegas after that, so it should be great. Yeah, Sean. So Rafa Tszyu is exciting as Sonny Bill and Gallon. Yeah, it's one of those fights. I've never really been excited about it, Sean. I'll be honest, it's probably one of those fights I've sort of hoped just doesn't happen. I don't know, just my personal. There's so much else going on out there. I just don't think the fight's going to happen, but we'll see. After watching Ramirez fight against Bill and Smith, Jai Patel will be very hard to beat. If the matchup ever happens, Eddie Hearn seems to be protecting Zerto Ramirez. Yeah, maybe, mate. Who knows? Yep, obviously Sam has to take the world title fight. Will he win? I highly doubt it, but in fact, I'll be betting on Ball decent size. But yeah, I don't think he wins, Batman. But as I said, you can't just say no to a world title fight because it's risky. It's as simple as that. So Ali wasn't talking about Goodman. I was talking about Aussie fighters that avoid each other. Okay, don't think avoiding each other an alternative route is worth it. Okay, so Ali, sorry there, mate. I didn't understand what you were sort of talking about there, mate. But yeah, as I said, mate, I just don't understand why you would knock back a world title fight because it's too risky. Yes, pound for pound. Vinny Paz just got inducted into the Hall of Fame last week. I wish I had been there pound for pound, but I had to make a call. Do I go over for the Hall of Fame and George's fight, or do I wait and go over for the two New York fights and Tim's fight? So it was a close one, but I had to go for Tim's fight pound for pound, as well as obviously Manny on the card as well. How was the turnout yesterday at the KO Lounge? Shit, Eminem. We had about 10 people there. So not good. 8 to 10 people. Not good. No one cared. Do you think that there could be a style technical in our boxers or trainers given the bad run we've had at top level? Nah, Carlo. I just think that we've had so many fighters that have stepped up. The ratio is always going to be, well, especially like any Like, if we have 10 world title fights, the odds are we're going to lose 6 or 7 of them. That's just going to be our strike rate. So I think we read into it too much. But having said that, I think a lot of our Aussies get world title fights that they probably shouldn't get or aren't ready for. So that's probably why we get a few losses there. But on the other hand, too, our Aussies, by the way, never shirk the issue. You know, as I said before, George gets a lot of flack with his losses, but the fact is he's fighting the best in the world. It's not like he's losing to, lesser lights. Jai wants to fight the best. The Maloney's have always fought the best. Tim's fought the best. It's just the way we are. So the odds are we're not going to win them all. And as I said, I reckon if we have 10 world title fights, we're going to lose probably 7 of them. That's just the way we roll. But, we've just got to, the thing is we've got new fighters coming through all the time, having cracks at world titles. So, the strike rate will hopefully improve. But I think if you looked at countries like England, they'd probably be the same. For every, one that wins a world title, you've probably got 3, 4 that don't win the world title. So it's just the way it is. We obviously overanalyze because they're our guys, but look at some of the fighters we've had. You've obviously, I just said mentioned Kambosos then against Haney, Lomachenko and Hitchens. No disgrace losing to any of those guys. We've had Liam Wilson up against Navarrete and Valdez. Certainly no shame in losing to those guys. Liam Paro beat Matthias and then fought Hitchens. Tim fighting Fundora and then Murtazalov. So you can see why we're losing as many as we're winning at the moment. The Maloney's, of course, Jason going to fight in Japan against Takai and he fought Inoue as well. Andrews fought Nakatani and, Franco. So, as I said, the odds are when you're fighting the quality of the guys that our guys fight, you're going to lose more than you win, and that's just boxing. So, I'm certainly look, as far as your style and technical stuff goes, the only thing I would probably say with our boxers is that maybe the guys at the top level maybe need to invest a little more in their training camps and maybe getting more experience by basing themselves in the States or wherever it might be, or even England for a while. I think sometimes the camps they have here and then go overseas and they probably haven't had as much sparring as they should overseas. I'm not sure. We've had fighters in the past like a Jeff Fennick and Jeff Horn and these types of guys never went overseas and had the training camps. They've done it all here and been successful, especially Jeff Fennick. He only fought out of Australia once in America, I think it was, against Nelson. Every one of his fights other than that was in Australia. So, I don't know. I think we've got some great coaches here, Carlo, but maybe some of them, maybe it's not the fighters that actually have to be the ones to go over and get the experience. Maybe it's the trainers that should base themselves over and get some experience. I must admit, if I was really serious about being a trainer, it'd be tough financially, but I'll be looking to go to a wildcard or something and study under Freddie Roach, or go to Oxnard and study under Robert Garcia, these types of guys, and learn from the best. Because as I said, we always sort of look at what the fighters are doing, but maybe it's the trainers that need to do a bit more research, because they don't really, when you think about it, what of our really good trainers here in Australia have got really an international sort of cred? Not many of them. A lot of them are just, they've learnt the trade in Australia, and they pass that on to the fighters. So I don't know. We could roll out a few different things, Carlo, but that's probably one off the top of my head that we could look at, rather than the fighters, send the trainers over or whatever and do a bit of an apprenticeship in one of the big gyms overseas. I don't know. I'm just guessing, of course, but all right. We've got a few more comments to go and we'll call it a night. Ali, Filipino flash one on the weekend. Do you think we'll see more veterans coming back in? I hope not, Ali. I hope we don't, if I'm being honest. Look, Nonito Donaire was matched carefully, as is Manny Pacquiao being matched carefully, and that's great. But I don't want to see, let's just say I don't want to see Nonito Donaire in with Junto Nakatani. I don't want to see it. Or Bam Rodriguez. I don't want to see it. Just like with Manny Pacquiao, I don't want to see him against Boots Ennis. I don't want to see him even against a Brian Norman. I don't want to see it. So if they're matched carefully, okay, that's fine. But they've just got to stay away from some of those real elite in prime type of fighters. So we'll see. Batman agreed. Sam is a fighter. He has to chase titles. Exactly, Batman. Again, I'll say it. I think we just miss the point sometimes about why these guys are fighters. And as I said, he wouldn't have hesitated for 1 second. He would have went, featherweight, even better. Don't have to ball down to 122. I can go up to 126 and be strong. Oh, okay, going the many card also. That's awesome. I can't wait for it, Batman. Like three fight cards in in 2 weekends. I think it's going to be fantastic. And I've got a really good seat too, Batman. This is I think, did I say this last week? I can't remember. I'll say it again anyway. But if you look at the map at the MGM, I think it's section 4. It goes to a point. And I've sat there probably, I reckon, 4 or 5 times. It's a one I always go. I get on the site as soon as the tickets come out because I want that ticket. If I go by myself, that is. And section 4 comes to a really sharp point. To the point where it starts with 1 seat and goes to 2, 3, 4 and goes up there. Well, I get the very first seat on the very first row. So I'm literally sitting by myself right on the point of section 4. So if you actually are there, you'll know where I am. Okay? Section 4, right on the point where I've got no one beside me. So I've got no one getting up and getting over me getting up over anybody else. Nothing like that. I'm sitting right at the point. And the best thing about it is it's right on the tunnel where the fighters go in and out. So I'm not going to have anyone trying to jump over me or whatever it is, what they all try and get photos and yell at the fighters and stuff. I'm right there, so no one will be getting past me. And it's a really, really, really good seat. So you know where to find me, Batman. But as I said, I've sat there a few times now, and in my opinion, it's the best seat in the house. I'm not sure there's another section where there's only 1 seat, but it's a unique one. And I jumped straight on and went, yes, it's there, and I got it straight away. All right, a couple more comments before we call it a night. Aussie fighters are good domestic fighters, and very few dominate the world. Costa was our last one, Jeff before him. Yeah, look, it's just the way it goes, Sean. But the difference is these days is that back then we had a Jeff and we had a Costa and we might have had a Jeff Harding or whatever it might be, and that was it. We didn't really have anyone, well, very rarely had many under them really coming through and fighting for titles as well. These days we've got our elite guys like Jai and maybe Tim. George was there as well. But now we're getting the blokes like Sam Goodman and Liam Wilson and all these guys, the Maloney's, all coming through and fighting for and winning world titles. Liam Paro. We didn't have that back in the day. When Jeff was there, I think Jeff Harding might have been coming through. Guy Waters fought for the world title as well. When Costa was around, there might have been. But that's the difference I see these days. When those guys were around, there was really no one else coming through or seriously coming through. And these days, there might be 7 or 8 guys under our most elite guys, all on the cusp of world title fight. So that shows where we're at. I think it's fantastic. Julian says, I'm backing Crawford against Canelo because of Bud's superior ring IQ and sheer will to win. What are your thoughts? I'm with you, Julian. I'm just curious about how Crawford goes carrying the weight. So I think 100% Crawford can do it, but I don't know. At this point, I've still got to just stick with Canelo to be a bit strong for Crawford. But geez, I tell you what, if the odds are good on Crawford, I'm taking him because you're right. A superior ring IQ, will to win. Well, I think Canelo is going to have that as well. But I think it's a great fight, and in theory, I think that Canelo should win. But geez, Crawford. I mean, someone said before they watched the Spence fight, if he can bring anywhere near that and carry the weight okay, he's going to give Canelo all sorts of problems. He's such a gifted fighter. I just keep thinking back to Hagler Leonard and what happened with that one. Leonard written off as well. People forgot about how skillful he was and how, no matter how good and that Hagler was, that Leonard's IQ and everything was just the difference in the fight, and that might be the case in this one. We will see. All right, where are we? Which fight are you looking forward to out of all 3? You can't say Tim Fundora. I'm looking for the fight or the card. Oh, look, if you're looking at the fight, it's probably Taylor Serrano 3. I'm looking forward to Shakur Stevenson and William Cepeda. I'm really looking forward to that one. I think it'll be a good fight. And on that card as well, I'm looking forward to Kataev and David Morrell. Should be a good fight as well. But if I had to pick one, strange enough, it's probably Katie Taylor and Serrano. What do you think of Eubank Senior? Odd. Aaron, very, very odd. I have to buy you a drink in the MGM fight week. Yeah, if I'm around, Batman, for sure, mate. I might even do a live broadcast or something while I'm there, I think. We'll see how we go. Aaron, Crawford in Canelo. Crawford for Spence, best performance I've seen from a boxer in a long, long while. Mate, he absolutely took Errol Spence apart. He really did. And what was supposed to be a pick-em fight, a 50-50 fight, Terence Crawford just made it look easy. dropped him in the first round, and Spence just couldn't recover. Look, the only asterisk I'll put beside that one, Aaron, is that I don't think Spence was anywhere near his best. But again, that's not Terence Crawford's problem. He turned up ready to go, put on an absolute masterclass, and if he can turn up anywhere near that form, I think Canelo might be in a bit of trouble. I don't really count the Madrimov fight. I think Madrimov, he turned up. Crawford, I think, was just struggling for motivation. I think if you heard his interview when he was here, he did say that he wanted to fight Tszyu, and for whatever reason, it couldn't come off. Had to really pretty much fight the next sort of best available with Madrimov. I don't think he was really excited about the fight, and I think it showed in his performance. But I think in Canelo, you're going to see him really in A1 condition, physically and mentally, and I think you're going to see a good performance or great performance from Crawford, and I think he's very capable of beating Canelo. All right, last question here. I've got Canelo. Never seen Crawford face anyone at Canelo's level. Yeah, it's a good point there, Batman. But who's Spence to Canelo? Yeah, it's another good call there, Batman. 100% there, mate. We will see in September. All right, guys. Well, look, that's going to do it for this episode. Really, thank you. I'm appreciative, and thank you very much for tuning in. As always, make sure you check out Walking Boxing every morning, 7 days a week. We'll continue up until I go next month. And really appreciate all the comments and feedback that I do get. Apologies too if I don't get back to you. I'm on the road a fair bit, so sometimes I've got to upload it and I'm gone. I don't get a chance to reply to your comments. But keep them coming. Any suggestions you have for Walking Boxing or any comments you want me to talk about in here, let me know. And we'll discuss them either on this show or Walking Boxing as well. So, guys, have a great week, and we'll catch you next Monday night on Talking Boxing.